Hi guys, I'm Munya and welcome back to Elevate Psychology. Today I'll be helping you tackle the short answer questions of A-level psychology. The buzzwords for short answer questions are selectivity and application. Think of these as a kryptonite for most students. The examiner's report tells us that lots of students weren't making the material relevant to the question, and it also said they wasted time by writing down irrelevant material. And that is a trap with short answer questions. You revise an entire topic and are given 2 or 3 meager lines to prove this to the examiner. But that's where we're wrong, because examiners don't need convincing that you know the information. They know that most students will have gone away and revised the topic. What they do want to see is students who are able to select from that body of information and apply it appropriately. Ultimately, it separates the good from the bad. And while selective application is a skill that needs developing, we can make a start in this episode. So let's start with this past question. Social influence research helps us to understand how it is possible to change people's behavior. For example, understanding how to persuade people to eat more healthily. With reference to this example of social change, explain how psychology might affect the economy, and that is worth 4 marks. A quick look at the mark scheme tells us that even if you spilled out billions of the most famous social influence studies, if you didn't apply them to the question, you'd only walk out with 50% of the marks. However, the research is still important, otherwise you're just stating your opinion. So a good starting point is to set up the answer with some famous social influence research. We could mention a majority influence study like Ash's famous 1951 experiment. This was a perfect example of people conforming to the majority in order to be right, or informational social influence. Or alternatively, we could mention a minority influence study. For example, Moscovici's 1969 rerun of Ash's study, in which a consistent minority managed to sway the majority. However, even with this solid research, if we leave our answers here, we're only walking away with 50% of the marks. The key is applying this research to the question, which specifically asks about healthy eating and the economy. And actually this is pretty easy to do, because all we need to do is bend the research we've mentioned to a context, just like in the example that's on screen now. In social influence research, there is compelling evidence to show that majority groups can convince individuals to change their behavior. For example, Ash in 1951 demonstrated that uncertain individuals will conform to a confident majority in order to be right, or informational social influence. Therefore, by generating a confident majority group of healthy eaters in society, be it celebrities or athletes for example, we may usher in a healthier eating habit amongst the population. Ultimately, this means less strain on public resources such as health services, better GDP rates, as less workers fall ill from unhealthy dietary habits. So to recap, I nailed the first 2 marks by stating a point and backing it up with some supportive evidence. However, I then worked to the context, explaining how a majority of healthy eaters might have a positive impact on the GDP, less sick days, all of which contribute to the economy and the context of the question. Out of all the studies we could have picked in this question, I used one that could easily lend itself to the context of healthy eating. That's my specificity. I then applied it to the context that they'd asked for, application. Let's have a look at a longer question. A psychologist carried out a study of social learning. As part of the procedure, he showed children aged 4 to 5 years a film of a 4-year-old boy stroking a puppy. Whilst the children watched the film, the psychologist commented on how kind the boy was. After the children had watched the film, the psychologist brought a puppy into the room and watched to see how the children behaved with the puppy. Outline what is meant by social learning theory and explain how social learning might have occurred in the procedure described above. 6 marks. Now, a quick look at the mark scheme and even the question itself tells us we can afford to be a bit more sparing when we describe the details of the study. We want to set the scene before diving into the specifics, so pause the video and have a quick look at my outline. So you can see I've led the argument with a pretty solid research example, that being the founder of the social learning theory, Alfred Bandura. And you can see it was enough for me to explain the roots of the theory, the key points and the study itself. Even if I had wrote in a million other studies, the point is it only accounts for half of the marks. So let's now move into the application section, breaking down the answer and applying it to the context. We can now see how I've repeated the key premises of the theory, but bent them to the particular context being asked in this question. And that is what we mean when we say specific application. Now, it is a skill that needs building, but once an examiner sees that you know your stuff and can specifically apply it to a context, you will be scoring top marks on all your short answer questions. That being said, the action points for this episode are to use this system to answer 2 short answer questions yourself and then check them using the mark scheme. For now, I've been Munya, this has been Elevate Psych. Peace!